And how's everybody doing tonight? Thank you for having me as we go through this. It's funny you have me going after TY, and TY, everything I'm going to say to you is probably going to question everything you just said, so it's going to be interesting. My background is psychology, very similar to that of Alex, and we kind of went through our programs together, so we know each other well. And I work on systemic change. That's one of my areas. I'm a teacher by trade, I'm an educator, and I also work on leadership training. I'm the chief behavior analyst for a company called Effervescent Leadership, and we spend a lot of our time working with leaders and helping them change their companies from the inside out, using what's called transformational leadership. And it's interesting, TY, because I'm going to bring up a few things here that you just shared, and I'm going to share why everything you just said is, you said, you know, African Americans, and you used the term African Americans multiple times, and we keep using the term African Americans. With respect, sir, I'm African, born and raised, okay? So you talked about me, and you talked about European Americans. Part of the problem is that we have used the term African, Jew, Italian, Irish, every other terminology to remind people where they came from and remind people from where they should be so that we can separate them into groups. Now, when we talk about culture, when we talk about psychology, this is done on purpose. This is not a mistake. It's not done by mistake at all. It's done on purpose to keep people where they are and keep people where they belong. I was born and raised in South Africa. I'm very well vested in what is apartheid. Respectfully, TY, I would say to you, please go back and take a look at it, very much so, because apartheid truth versus apartheid perception is such an interesting conversation, because where did apartheid come from in South Africa? America. And America has spent a long time separating people using psychology and using culture. So when Sharman asked me to be part of this, and I said to her, yeah, I'll be happy to be part of it, but you know, my area is psychology and the people's psychology and how the people's psychology uses that to where we are. And Alex was at the beginning, she said, you know, you're looking at social media and how social media creates what it does. It separates us. It diversifies us into what our beliefs are and what our beliefs are not. And so when we maintain what we are going through a human experience that is valid for many and invalid for others. And it's an argument of humanity versus human rights. It really is. And in the argument of humanity versus human rights, as we have this conversation, we need to find out what the truth is. And the only way we're going to do that is to get inside the system. We have to be willing to open the system. So we have to take away the labels. It's Alex, it's TY, it's Chantal, it's your name, your people. We're all people. And until we can all look at each other as people, taking away that label, taking away all the things that separate us, by saying you're African, by saying I'm African, it puts a label. I'm an African Jew, or I'm a person. Which one am I? And that's where we look at systemic change. So me coming and looking at the culture of things, the systemic change of things, if we want transformation as a people, we have to go into the system and work on the system to tease it apart and tease out the things, bring that honest conversation. I think, TY, you were the one saying we need that honest conversation. Love it. We need the honest conversation, but we also need to come with solutions. And if we can take the conversation away from what is your title? You're not an Arab American. You're not a Middle Eastern American. You're not a Jew. Gender is a different conversation. Sexuality is a different conversation, but they're who we are. They're part of who we are. We're people. So when people turn around and say, you know, what is your race? We put it on a form all the time. What is your race? I always put human, because that's what I am. I'm human. And that's, I think, one of the most important things. You know, there's anger on all sides, but we're not going to solve anger. And go back to the psychologist to me, we're not going to solve anger if we don't put it on the table and have that systemic conversation. And so as part of us here, and I'm assuming that, you know, the next phase here, Sharman, as we get going, is questions and comments to put that conflict out there, put the topics out there, because what is culture is who we are. And Black people have a culture. White people have a culture. People in Florida have a culture. People in New York have a culture. They're still people. And if we can recognize their cultures, then we can even go further down. You know, Chantal, I don't know where you're located, but I think you said you're in South Florida, maybe. South Florida is very different than Orlando. You know, Sharman, where you're living is very different in there. So our cultures need to kind of start to blend, or at least be respectful and understand each other's cultures. And I said at the beginning of doing a lot of leadership work, what happens is people enter a company, they're from outside the culture, and they come in and they want to blend with the culture. They want to be accepted. And that's one of the problems in companies is people come in and they either buy into 100% of the culture, or they put on the outside. We have to learn how to create a harmonious environment. So, I'm going to leave my time for whatever's left, like Alex said, for her side, and let's get some questions and answers and comments as we can make it happen. And that way we can look to a brighter future that works with everybody as people. I actually check the box that says other, and I check all the boxes. And if it doesn't have Jewish, I put Jewish. I write Jewish in there. And then I put a little note. I started writing a little note in there because being human, that's what I said when I was talking, being human is what my race is. And then, get the breakdown. Now I understand our cultural narrative, which is to get the data and get all those pieces. And we've got all these equal opportunity processes, and we've got all that. I understand that. And maybe I'm trying to make a martyr out of something that doesn't need to be martyred. But I think it really goes down to the conversation of psychology when you continue to remind somebody over and over again that you are African history, you are Jewish history, you are Arab history. It reminds them of where they came and reminds others to look at them differently. So it's another form of othering as well. So to answer your question simply, I check the box other and then check multiple comments.